It's 5:15. We'll call this regular school board meeting to order. If you are able, please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome those of you that are in the audience, and we are able to physically distance in our room to ensure safety is taken into account. Roger, could you please read our school board norms?
Sure. School board norms developed are to share and respect varied opinions and speak with a united voice once a decision has been reached, to prudently prioritize resources in a student-centric manner that aligns with the district's strategic plan, to exhibit a mindset of continuous improvement through adequate preparation for meetings and a commitment to board education, to commit to assessing board effectiveness to ensure high-quality governance for the staff, students, and the community of Jamestown.
Thank you. We have nothing under public communication, but I did want to give a quick reference as to how the process of tonight's meeting will go before we move any further. We will be welcoming 2 new board members to the board, and we will be recognizing 2 other board members as they leave. Then we will be holding an election for the president position of the board, and that is voted upon by all elected officials. So the 2 that are new will participate in that election. The 2 that are leaving will not participate in that election. Once that election for the president has taken place, we will take a short recess, as the tables will need to be cleaned for the 2 outgoing members, so the 2 incoming members have a sanitized location. Any questions with that? So moving on in our agenda, we have nothing under public communication, so moving into old business. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Roger, second by Heidi. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on into our agenda, we have the recognition of board members. And I apologize, is Heidi or Dr. Leck doing that? Heidi, okay, thank you.
Can everyone hear me? We'd like to thank Jennifer Schmidt and Steve Belkamp for their service to this district. Jennifer has served as president, and Steve was very instrumental in our task forces to looking at referendums, and very, very knowledgeable with construction and contracts, and we really valued his input and knowledge in that area. And Jennifer, thank you for your leadership on committees such as Healthcare Committee and being our board president. And the one sitting around the table understand the amount of time that you've dedicated to these positions, and we very much appreciate it. We do have a token over here, which I'll go stand by you, but I won't touch it and let you pick it up. And Dr. Leck, did you have a few words to say as well?
I did, and I want to echo the appreciation, and that I'm sure I can speak for the board too, in stating appreciation for Steve and Jennifer, both, and I hope our community understands, both outstanding examples of board members in our community, both very different in how they approach governance. Jennifer is at board meetings very vocal and speaks in this meeting. Steve probably asked more questions of me than anybody, although in meetings you may not necessarily see, but I think that speaks to what Heidi was saying. There's a ton of effort and ton of time commitment that goes into this job of board member, and I couldn't have, I couldn't be happy. I'm certainly sad to see you both go, but I couldn't have been happier to have had the opportunity to work with you both, and just as really shining examples of board members and how to do this really very difficult and very challenging job. I appreciate you very much. I felt like I've learned a ton as a superintendent from working with both of you, and I will miss you, and I appreciate you very much. Maybe one at a time.
Steve, the man of many words, did you have any parting ones? I figured as much. He said he was fresh out, if any of you didn't hear.
Yep.
Welcome to the new board members, and it was a pleasure to serve.
This is exactly what I was talking about with Steve. Steve sent a very eloquent email to all board members, and again, something that those not at those watching wouldn't know. Very eloquent email. There's a lot of ways to do this job, and at the end of the day, it's all about being prepared and asking the necessary questions. There's a lot of different ways to do that, but it's a good example of, I think, how Steve approaches this role.
It wasn't short.
No, it wasn't.
Moving on in our agenda, we will do the organization of the board for 2019-2020 school year. It's actually 2020-2021 school year. And we'll do the seating of the new board members. For the time being, we will have our new board members sit in the middle there with us and welcome. We are pleased that you are here to join us. And we are going to move on then. And I apologize, it is Gail Nelson and Mr. Roberts. Aaron, thank you. I just completely lost it there. I apologize. Aaron Roberts will be joining our board. And as I mentioned at the beginning, as we have our election of officers, the two incoming board members, please participate in the election of the president. And Steve and myself will not pose the election, and we can't make the motion either. Okay? And by policy, I have to lead the process. Once the president is elected, then the newly elected president, after a short recess, will then hold the election for vice president, and then we'll carry on with the rest of the meeting. All right, so with that, do I have a motion for president? A nomination, Mr. Toso? I have a nomination for Roger Hout.
Don't need a second. Don't need a second.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Jason?
I nominate Heidi Larson.
Heidi Larson, do you accept the nomination? Heidi Larson declines the nomination. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Mr. Hout?
I move that nominations cease and be cast in unanimous ballot.
I have a motion on the table to cease the nominations and cast a unanimous vote. Can I have a second? Seconded by Greg. Any discussion? All those in favor say, or well, I guess I don't. Motion carries. Welcome, Mr. President Hout. And with that, we will take a short recess so that the locations can be sanitized for Mr. Hout to take over the president, Mr. Roberts to take over which seat?
We'll reorganize.
You know what, Amy, we'll take care of it all.
I'll just step back.
Yep.
Yep. Take your stuff with you.
Ready? Okay, it's 5:32. We're back in session. Moving on, we have to elect a vice president. Open nominations for vice president. Oh, we need to first vote on the past. We didn't vote on the president. So voting for president, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to vice president now. We'll open nominations for vice president. Heidi Larson. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Is there a motion to move that nominations cease and cast a unanimous ballot? Motion by Bob, seconded by Jason. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving into the schedule for date, time, and place of our regular meeting. We need a motion and a second. Motion by Heidi.
You just want to make the note that the schedule's included in there.
And the schedule's included in on the motion there. Seconded by Greg. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter D, is there a motion to set the school board compensation for 2020-2021? And for the public, it hasn't changed from last year. I think it's $4,000 for a board member, $4,500 for the $4,600 for the president. Motion by Greg, seconded by Aaron. Any discussion? Hearing none. Assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving into conflicts of interest. Any conflicts of interest to declare? Bob?
Through kind of a strange system of happenstance, I'm the superintendent of schools out at Pingree Buchanan right now, and will be for the next 2 years. So periodically, I'll be declaring a conflict of interest if there's anything that comes up that affects that school district. And tonight we do have, is it a waiver of tuition? Yeah, a waiver of tuition for a student from Jamestown that desires to go to Pingree Buchanan. So I do declare a conflict of interest.
Heidi?
I would just want to, do we should vote on, do you have to vote on this now? Yes, so I make a motion to allow Bob to vote on the agenda items that relate to Pingree Buchanan
Okay.
School for tonight.
There's a motion. Seconded by Jason. Any discussion? Greg? Your mic. Oh, sorry.
I guess one point I would want to make, not that I wouldn't, trust you to, but I'm just wondering if it might put you in an awkward position to vote on some of those if things come up. I'm just trying to look at how you might look at that and how you might feel about it.
I think there are things where I'll declare a conflict of interest and ask not to be included in the discussion and the voting. The waiver of tuition, the open enrollment, I don't want to say that those are not important because they are, obviously, but they're a little more routine, and we routinely do pass those. So I don't see that as much of a conflict as if there might be. There's some other things. Dr. Leck and I have visited about some things that could potentially cause me not to want to take part in the discussion. So when they come up, I'll indicate that I would prefer not to take part or vote.
Any other discussion? Melissa? Oh, okay. No other discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving. Oh, Heidi?
I also have a conflict. I'd like to note that I'm employed by University of Jamestown in the Department of Academic Affairs, and I know
Okay.
there's some agenda items related to that.
Okay. Melissa?
I have the same conflict with being employed at the University of Jamestown.
Bob?
I would move that we allow both to participate in the discussion and vote on the issues that involve the University of Jamestown.
Okay, there's a motion. Seconded by Jason. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to board member committees. That's there in your drive. Can we have a motion to accept those? And then also, if we could do subsequent the appointment of Heidi Larson to the Central Valley District Board for the 2025 term. Motion by Bob, seconded by Melissa. Any discussion? Bob?
Are you going to have us write down the committees we wish to serve on and get in touch with you? Is that
They're
later?
listed on there already.
Yeah, I
Yep.
know, but some of them are appointed by the president. I'm sorry, I might be ahead of myself here.
Rob?
Just a point of clarification. I just provided, based on what was done last year and putting pieces with new members in, if there's a different way the board wishes to do that, then I'm certainly open to that. I'm just providing you a place to start from.
And if there's some committee that you want to be on, that's, I think what Rob looked at is where to best your history and your knowledge would be best served on those committees, I'm thinking, so. But if there's some committee that you don't want to be on, or if there's someone that you want to be on, just let me know and we can do some adjusting, so. Jason?
So then what exactly are we voting on here?
We don't have to vote on anything if we want to make sure that if everybody wants to double check that list, and we can move it to the next meeting too. Heidi?
Or we could also just vote on, none of these committees, I don't even think meet in the next month. We could vote on this now. If there's some change, slight change, we could just add that to a consent
Correct.
agenda
We
later
can add
on,
it to a
so.
different meeting too.
Approval, so. I also know that Central Valley will need that for their records, I think, coming this next month. And that is not necessarily a board member, but just a school district person that is on that committee. It's a position I've been serving and would like
Right.
to continue serving.
Okay. Is that all right, Jason? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And if it's all right with the board, we'd like to move up 5B, since we have guests here regarding the state aid funding. 5B, if we could move that up just before the new consent agenda, if that's all right with everybody? It would be 5B, 1, 2, and 3 we'd have to act on it. Is that all right with everybody? Rob?
Okay. I want to draw your attention to Board Memo 60. As the board is aware from our previous meeting, we've had some discussions about this, about the potential for a shared facility for a couple of meetings. The board's given me some direction. I drafted Board Memo 60 to provide you and the public with a little bit of an outline and some rationale and how I got to this recommendation. So if it pleases the board, I would just walk through. I'll try to do it as succinctly as possible, but walk through this board memo. In the section of overview of recent shared facility planning, I wanted to recognize, and I think it's important that the board continues to recognize that we have an outstanding relationship with the University of Jamestown, and because we have this positive relationship, opportunities present themselves. In this facility is one of those opportunities that's presented itself. As we discussed at our last meeting in June, the University of Jamestown is proceeding with this renovation regardless if the opportunity is the right opportunity for Jamestown public to participate and share in this facility. But because we have this strong relationship, this opportunity has been afforded to us. And so we set an ad hoc committee. That ad hoc committee met with the University of Jamestown leadership. I think it's important to note, too, we've had discussions about sharing facilities with the University of Jamestown for years. The opportunity just hasn't been the right opportunity yet. And now I would suggest that it is the right opportunity and it is the right time to enter into this shared partnership. But in the recent months, we had an ad hoc committee that was formed by board direction. Bob Toso, Steve Veldkamp, Jim Rollson, and myself, and a number of University of Jamestown staff, including those that are here, participated in these discussions, and we came to the solution that there is an opportunity to participate together to create a shared facility, and I'll talk a little bit about what that facility and what those plans would look like with a Jamestown Public Schools partnership. But at this June 1st meeting, the ad hoc committee talked about all of the ways we could share and came to the conclusion that enhancing the existing football field and track at the University of Jamestown and some other additional adjustments to their plan for their campus, again, which I'll discuss in a little bit more detail later. But we felt like it was the time was right, and that was a recommendation brought to the board on June 15th. At June 14th, the board heard that discussion. I shared a little bit. Bob Toso, Dr. Peterson shared all the different perspectives from the administration, from the school board, representation from the University of Jamestown. We did think it was the right time to work together again and pursue that shared facility. The recommendation was formalized, unanimous board action, and the direction that was given is to create a plan to have a shared facility that would not provide an increase to our general fund budget. So that's where, from Sally's perspective and mine, we had to be a little bit more creative. I think we know from previous referendums, the board has spoken, or the community has spoken fairly loud to say, we're at our cap. It's tough to support financially more than what we have on the plate right now. And like I've said in previous meetings, that's been pretty loud, and I think as a district we need to be very responsive and hear what our community is saying. So we had to look to different opportunities, and we'll have that to bring to you in just a bit. So what this opportunity is redesigning and rebuilding the track at the University of Jamestown, putting replacing grass with turf on the football field, redesigning and rebuilding the track, creating west bleachers and boxes, renovating game day locker rooms, facilities at the Hansen Center, in a phased plan, paved parking lots, and create a pavilion connecting the campus. Beyond that, we had the conversation about what the needs were for Jamestown Public. Beyond a location to house football games and track, there's also the need to enhance practice facilities. We've had discussions in the past and just at our last meeting about the safety concerns, bringing our least experienced drivers down to an elementary campus during school dismissal and asking for practice there. We all, I think everybody around in this room has been to a football game and recognized that that's less than opportune parking around that facility as well. And so this plan would address two of those concerns. One, the safety in terms of practice. That practice would then happen on campus, which was an item we talked about quite a bit in terms of our previous referendum as one of the needs that we saw, the safety of asking our students to drive. This turf practice field would be to soccer dimensions, and what that means is you would have an opportunity to not just, and I think sometimes in the past when we've talked about this issue, it's become about football and the football field. I've heard that a lot of times, talking about the football field. This is far more than a football field. This is far more than impacting football players. You know, I went down and I did ask for some information related to our activities and our curricular offerings, just to get an idea of what impact across activities and our school offerings could be impacted by this type of facility. It's far more than a football field. At soccer dimensions, that means that you could practice soccer. Of course, that means that you could practice softball and baseball on that field. You could practice football. There'd be opportunities for athletic development. There'd be opportunities for, of course, our physical education on that space. And I went through in this memo and detailed out all of the numbers of students that would be impacted by such a facility. 87 student athletes in the fall. That's 49 in football, 38 in soccer. And now I'm talking about what 2019 numbers that could obviously change. But in the spring of 2020, we had 116 student athletes, 35 in softball, 30 in baseball, 51 in soccer, that could have been impacted by this type of facility. If you look at curricular uses, that's even a far greater number. We have 574 course enrollments for physical education, 240 that have traditionally taken athletic development. Those are all impacted by this space. And I just point those out because, again, I don't want this to be referenced as a football field project. It isn't that. It would be a facility in which we're playing football and running track, but it is far more than a plan to address football needs. And I just want to reinforce that. I think there's lots of opportunities in a high school that has 700 students. There's a lot of kids that could potentially be impacted by this type of facility on the high school campus. So it comes down then to how would we finance such a project given the parameters of we don't want to see an increase to the general fund. We don't want to see a vote to the people to expand our building fund or our debt service. So how do we go through and pursue a project like this? And I think there's a great opportunity, and the opportunity exists due to timing. I think as we look at, in 2004, our district entered into an energy efficiency program. It was a guaranteed energy service savings contract by ESG. If you've looked at your superintendent's report, we quarterly provide you with a report on the ESG projects and how they've saved the district money. This program, however, has 2 years left of bond payments, and I think we all understand that this is a great time to refinance. Just the economy that we're in, this is an opportune time. We have 2 years left to refinance that payment. If the board were to go into this direction, could sell certificates of indebtedness to provide capital to do this project as well as other facility projects, clip the peak, as you've heard me say before, clip the peak on some of our higher cost projects. I think it's a great opportunity to do a little bit of both. This opportunity isn't going to exist again. We have an opportunity now. I think it makes sense to take advantage of the opportunity that exists right now, and that's a partnership with the University of Jamestown. If you look at the budget that I have outlined for you, or at least some of the potential projects, what you would see is a commitment of $2 million to the University of Jamestown project. Now, again, that would include the resurfacing of redoing the track, turfing their football field, or the football field at that stadium, redoing the track and resurfacing the track, adding on those additional bleachers, the renovation of game day locker rooms, and the turfing of soccer practice field to soccer dimensions at the high school. I'll be very honest, I've been very thankful with the University of Jamestown. That is a tremendous deal for the Jamestown Public Schools. We're very thankful that they are making this available to us. There's pretty significant costs in what we're talking about with a turfed complex or a turfed practice field, the turfing of the football field. The remainder outside of that $2 million would be devoted to, would all be fundraised. That is the plan for the University of Jamestown. We would have to set aside some dollars for a locker room facility. It only makes sense if you have a complex or a field there. you have to have a place for kids to change, for storage, those types of things. And so there's dollars set aside for that as well. We can't, however, forget that there are other facility needs in the district, and if we have an opportunity to refinance this ESG bond, or these bonds, that we need to clip the peak. And I've laid out some other opportunities that, in my mind, make sense to prioritize. They are larger ticket items that in 1 year of a building fund, we couldn't commit, or we would need to commit all of, or save through multiple years to address. I think this is, in my opinion, a great compromise in terms of how we can address our facility needs, but also take advantage of an outstanding opportunity that the University of Jamestown has provided to us. And the recommendation that I have is to move forward with selling certificates of indebtedness, and I have a procedure there if if those are the wishes of the board. I think at this time I'm just going to stand for questions, and we can maybe have further discussion and go from there.
Any questions for Rob on this? Greg? Oh, your mic.
Okay, the total project comes to significantly more than the 2 million we're putting in.
Absolutely. The project itself, and maybe Dr. Peterson, you could speak a little bit to the total project cost, significantly more than $2 million. And I want to come back to something else too, but.
Thank you for asking that question. So far, the original conversations with the architect and the estimator, knowing that we aren't fully done yet, they remind me to be careful because as I make numbers available, bidding hasn't gone out yet. So we're estimating the project to be somewhere between $11 and $11.5 million. So we look at it as about a 10% investment in the cost of the participation in what's on our campus.
Just a quick follow-up to that. And so just the fundraising part, how does that fit in?
To date, we have been out fundraising, and we identified a lead donor who's participating in the project. So we've raised about $4.7 million to date. And together, we hope that Rob and I, and we've had conversations with others who might know people that are both graduates of the university and graduates of Jamestown Public School System who might be willing to participate. I think the community has spoken in the past and said that, that there should be opportunity for us to do some fundraising together so that it isn't all on the backs of taxpayers. And so now is an opportunity for us to work together to identify people who might be excited about this opportunity to work together, and I think we'll get there.
One other item I wanted to draw attention to relates to the projected budget options, the overview. I just wanted to draw your attention to the fact that we are looking at this year and next summer's summer projects plans. We're pooling those dollars, kind of commingling that together. So when you look at that budget, which is originally, Greg, where I thought your question was going, is we're commingling the 10 mils for our next summer's projects along with this. We'll be doing those all at the same time. That's why if you look at what is being requested, which is the 3.9 plus in state aid refunding certificates of indebtedness, that's why you see that number being a little bit more, because we're also commingling our summer projects for next summer with that budget. Does that make sense? Any have questions on that? Okay.
Jason?
So in essence, approving this could expedite some of our other building needs?
Yeah, it will. Approving this means that we'll have $1.5 million to address our highest priority needs. And I've given you a few different examples of what we would target as the highest priority. Again, if you I'll draw your attention to that budget, you can look at some of those areas. We've talked a lot about replacing boilers in all of our elementaries. We know they're either from 1958 or 1960. Our largest expense from those heating systems has been Gusner. Half of our facility is steam, half is hot water, so we need to do a conversion there. That may cost double what the boilers have cost at Roosevelt and at Lincoln Elementary Schools. So there could be, there will be additional cost. We don't know how much until we have an engineer come in and do that, but we're estimating that. We've talked a lot about HVAC needs, and I don't know if HVAC needs have ever been a bigger issue than they are right now. As we sit in the middle of a pandemic, having older buildings and HVAC needs is a significant concern. We've talked about this particular building, if you've had a sixth grader yet, being up on the third floor is a cooling issue. There are significant needs with heat. That is, we're asking kids to learn in conditions that we ourselves would not work in, but we're doing it every day. And we're asking staff to work in those conditions as well. And that's just one of the areas that I've outlined as potential projects in the remainder of those funds. So like I said, we have that budget, and you can certainly ask me questions on those, but that's just a handful of the projects that we're talking about.
Oh, Melissa, sorry.
Sorry, that's me.
Just for a point of clarification on if we approve this, we know that for sure $2 million will be going to the University of Jamestown, Jamestown Public Schools joint thing. As we go forward with the other projects, will we be voting on each project as it comes, or is it just going to be based on your outline here, or are we able to vote as we go what the extra funds will be?
It's a great question. I think at this time you would be making a commitment, or we would be making a commitment, as we've said, that there's $2 million that will be going to the University of Jamestown. We're targeting about $500,000 for practice facility locker rooms. But in our conversations with the University of Jamestown, if that were to be less than $500,000 for that facility, we would provide an additional, whatever that difference is, to the University of Jamestown. For example, if that were to cost $300,000, we would then provide the University of Jamestown 2.2. I see them as the same thing. For us to have that turf facility, we need to have locker room facilities. We're estimating what that cost is. The likelihood of it being less than that, maybe not so great. But I think it's important that we make that commitment to the University of Jamestown, that we want to give them as much as we can, knowing that this is an awfully big project that's being fundraised, and we want to make our fair commitment. And so that's why I targeted 2.5 with the addition of that, with that facility, but no less than $2 million. Hopefully that made sense.
I guess my question was more along the lines of money being spent in our district. Like when it came to the boiler projects and stuff, will we be voting for those as they come? Sorry, I should have clarified that.
No, you asked the question. I just only answered a part of it. I guess what I would be anticipating doing is providing those projects just like we do summer projects. You would be approving a budget including the summer projects. I'm just giving you an example of options. It's very difficult for me to say without a better cost estimate, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. We need to have greater conversations. I'm trying to outline the needs here are far greater than what we have available, but we need to prioritize. And again, I come back to the fact that this is an opportunity that's presented itself. It behooves us to very strongly consider, and my recommendation is to move forward. But I think it's an opportunity that won't be here in the future, and that I think it makes sense for the district to look at.
Heidi or Aaron first?
So just a clarification question on the funding model. So that you said the ESG bond payment is roughly $250,000 a year today. How does this extended bond structure then, how does that compare to that?
So essentially, you'd be refinancing for that same dollar amount. You'd be refinancing you'd pay off your existing debt and sell bonds on the 20-year term. So you're spending the same thing you're spending right now throughout. I think I've included the amortization schedule or the bond schedule there too.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to look at that, but that was, so basically, what we're realizing today with our expenses would just continue on for a longer period of time.
That's correct. So just to reinforce, it's not additional dollars that they're being asked of the community. You're refinancing what the payment we are already making. Yes, for a longer term, but it is refinancing. It is not a financial burden to the community.
Any addition? Yep, go ahead.
What is the expectation of the University of Jamestown for this funding? Is there some timing constraints from your side?
We anticipate that this fall will begin the project. It may be phased depending on how fundraising goes, but we feel like in order for us there's a short window for us to play football next fall. And then the following year track and field, or the following spring. So we need to be able to dig on the west side because the track is going to get widened. Right now we have a longer track with narrower corners and we want to widen that out. So that'll begin this fall. So we anticipate that probably the first phase of this project, which will include the practice space on your campus, is probably going to be somewhere around $7 million, $6.5 to $7 million, depending on where bids come in. So as you refinance, that would become available right away. Remembering that a fairly large share of your commitment is actually part of your own project up here.
So then how does that timing then equate to what we need to do here as a board as far as a voting scheme?
I provided the three different steps that you would need to take to move forward. I called them shared facility step 1, which is the credit enhancement. Let me bring up the agenda here. So you'd have to make a motion to participate in the school bond credit enhancement program. You would make a motion to approve the public sale of $3,920,000 in state aid refunding certificates of indebtedness. You'd have a bond sale resolution, and then you'd have to approve the notice of bond sale. So those are the 3 steps that you'd need to take. Is that your question?
The question was the timing of those steps.
Well, you would move forward
Tonight.
I'm recommending that you move forward tonight.
Jason?
One last thing too is, I'm excited, I think this is an opportunity that we should take advantage of, but I think we would also be remiss if we didn't, as a district, also start talking about some of our longer range facility needs goals and how that ties into, we've been saying for a couple years that a referendum is pretty much inevitable. So maybe it's time now that this has presented itself, we need to see how our big picture facility needs fits into this picture as well.
Rob?
I think it's a fair comment. The one point I would make is we've had all of the examples that I provided in the summer projects, as well as this project, at least to some degree, have been aspects of facility plans that we've talked about. And I think this is one way to do part of that. I think your other question or your other statement relates to a referendum. From my perspective, the community has already spoken fairly loud that right now is not the time that they support. further referendum and tax increase. This is a way that we can clip the peak on some of the projects that we have and take advantage of an opportunity that also fits into. This is not separate from facility needs that we've already discussed. It's part of that. And I think everybody around the table could look at all of the project lists and say, well, I would do this one first, and I would do this one first, and I would do this one first. And you probably have 9 different priorities. But the reality is one of them exists that's an $11 million project that we can be a part of for 2. And I think that has an opportunity to be very respectful and responsive to what we've heard from the community, which is, boy, you need to partner with the University of Jamestown. Why are you not partnering with the University of Jamestown? I think it's also responsive to the statement that Dr. Peterson's referenced to of why aren't you pursuing more for this type of thing? Pursue more opportunities to fundraise. Well, this fundraises a vast majority of this project, and I think the other recognition is, as Dr. Peterson has already referenced, what we would be providing to that project is very close to the cost of just the practice facility. I think in terms of what the district would be getting is a great deal. And I can't say it enough how appreciative I am of the University of Jamestown to include us in this conversation. I think it's representative of those strong relationships we've had in the past and continue to have. All the conversations we've had over the years about shared facilities and shared programming. We've had other conversations even recently about that have nothing to do with activities, but have everything to do with how we're working together. These kinds of opportunities come from cultivating those kinds of relationships. So, like I said, everybody's going to say, well, I would do this project first or this project first. But the reality is that's part of planning we've had in the past. So I don't feel like it's separate from the facility needs we've had. I think it's a way to clip some of those projects off our list and move on to other ones.
Aaron?
So I understand the urgency and definitely the opportunity with partnership. I think it's a great opportunity. But do these need to be coupled? Or can they be treated as mutually exclusive funding efforts? So you have the $2 million for University of Jamestown, but then you also have the other $1.92 million that you've listed in and described some of the projects. Do they need to be coupled?
I'm not completely sure I understand your question, but as I think I understand it, what we're trying to do is maintain what we have expended. And that equates, go ahead if you.
I think Aaron's question, there's cost in selling the bonds and doing all this paperwork. So yes, it would need to be done all at the same time. Is that what you're thinking? 2 separate, loan structure? I mean, it's all one thing.
Yeah. I understand economies of scale and, doing, 2 events versus 1 event, and 1 event is cheaper. I understand that. But, the proposal on the table, recommendation on the table is for $3.92 million, of which $2 million is pretty concrete. It's clear. The other $1.92 million, to me, isn't clear in terms of what the projects and what we're actually looking at approving or asking for approval for. That's why I'm asking, do they need to be coupled or can they be treated as mutually exclusive? And if so, what does that cost?
So you could approve those sales separately. The reason I didn't present all of the different projects, I was trying to give a broad swath of these are the types of projects that I would look to do. And I think this was Melissa's question, we would come and treat those as we do summer projects. We would create a budget that spends, it would come from these lists. And again, I'm just trying to not pigeonhole. We haven't done enough. We haven't determined exactly what the costs are in each of those projects. I'm just saying these are the lists. These are the lists of the projects I feel have the highest priority that we should be targeting first. We'd create a budget based on those to match the bond proceeds outside of the $2 million and the $500,000 for the for the locker room facility that we feel is a partner to that practice facility.
Heidi?
I'd just like to speak to the other projects. And so as a new board member, these might look a little new to you, but this is the list of HVAC, boilers. That whole list is the same list we've probably been looking at for about 10 years. It hasn't changed. And so we know that there's this list, and we know what it is. We just hope one of those boilers doesn't go about December 30th, and because we know that we need to get these fixed as well. So I guess I would like, if we're going to do the sale of the bonds, I'd like to just do all of it at one time, prioritize our commitments, and then outside of that, we have them even kind of gauged as high priority, mid priority, low priority. And once we get even one of our other boilers, they had to come in and make, I don't even understand it, but special parts because I think it was at Roosevelt that we had problems getting that. We don't always know those costs until we dig into it. So if we dig into one of these boilers and it costs more, we might have to scale back another project a little bit, but at least have some dollars to finally start the process of. I find this very exciting because, again, this is an opportunity for us to really start moving forward on the things that our district has been trying to do for a long time. And I can say, since I'm talk with people who are involved in the school district as well as University of Jamestown, the community, people are very excited about, we're a small community. People are very excited about us finally really having something that we can meaningfully really work together that's going to save our taxpayers money. And people are really excited. And I've heard a lot of excitement about the track. That's what I've heard a lot of excitement about as well, is, we have a number of students and just having those opportunities and having a track so we can have track meets. I've heard a lot of excitement around that.
Rob?
I think I better understand your question. Through some discussion, I just want to maybe make some clarifying points. I could have created a budget for you that said, these are the 5 projects that we're doing. I don't have a cost. It would have been disingenuous for me to say, it's going to, our Gusner Elementary boiler project, which is the number 1 priority I have. Whatever project we do is going to include that project. I could have said, it's going to cost $800,000, but we haven't engineered it yet. I don't know what the costs are yet. We might just be able to work through and remove steam traps, and that project costs $450,000. I could have given you a budget and said, these are the projects that we're doing, but we just don't know. But I'm going to tell you, that project is going to be number 1 on the list, and the second recommendation I'll have is key card access and visitor management to enhance security across our district. Those are big needs that we see. Again, we haven't got quotes outside of very basic quotes on some of those, and that depends on how many locks we're doing and all of that. So I could have given you that and said, these are the 4 projects that we're doing, but I was trying to give you more options to say, it's going to be in this range of projects. And that's why I gave you the examples of, number 1 and number 2, just as it's going to be one of these. Because there is some level of variability in what those expenditures are. Because this project happened, our conversations, while we've been talking for years, the rubber started hitting the road in May and June. We didn't have time to come to this type of full-on budget, but it's going to be those projects that are on that list. It's just which ones we can afford.
And they'll come back to the board too. I mean, whatever, like some of the summer projects, they come back to the board and we vote on those. So it's not like somebody's got an open checkbook to spend wherever they want to spend, so. Any other questions?
Is this limited then to building fund projects, or is this other priorities within the overall scheme?
Essentially, they're general fund dollars. You would target them as a board towards these projects. So you would approve as a board the projects. I'll create, as I said, a summer project list that includes next year's, and we can do that earlier than we traditionally do it because now we would have that summer project, so we'd be working it a little bit ahead. But I would look to create a budget for you. You would approve that, and that's what those expenses would be for. But the general fund would see that same expense of that 250,000 that you were currently budgeting for ESG. But you'd pay that bond off and then you'd move forward with these other projects.
Any other discussion? Jason?
How soon would these funds be available then? Like to start these projects?
That might be a Sally question. It's very quick. The turnaround is very quick.
The bonds have to go out on bid for 2 weeks and then after that, so it's a quick turnaround process.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, could I have a motion to approve? Oh, yep, go ahead.
And is there any issue with a sharing agreement then with the University of Jamestown that is something that's placed?
We've had discussions about that, and that we'll continue to have discussions about how to work that sharing agreement. University of Jamestown and Jamestown Public Schools has had a long relationship that we've managed to work out. UJ uses our facilities when they need to. We have been able to use their facilities when we need to. I'd point to the track as a great example. We've had the ability to practice and use that facility for years, and we haven't had a district expense to that facility outside of the occasional repairs that we're asked to share in or something like that. But it's been, that's something that'll continue to be discussed, but I'm not concerned about managing that sharing agreement.
Heidi?
And I think that's a really good question, Aaron, because I think that, I've fielded questions around that as well. But I think anyone who's had kids in activities or athletics, you've probably found yourself somewhere on University of Jamestown using some of their facilities. If it rained, a soccer game gets moved over there. If something is at the high school, we have use of some of the other buildings on the campus over there. There's our junior high kids go up there for STEM programming in March. So I think, it's a good question, but I think throughout the years, there's a long history of shared use of facilities. And I think our school district probably has been on the benefit side of that oftentimes. And sometimes it's last minute. Like I said, if it rains or something, we end up using some of their facilities, and they're very accommodating.
But it is something we've talked about, and we'll formalize what that agreement looks like.
Bob?
I think it's also good to point out that discussions, one way or the other, have been going on for at least 20 years, and maybe longer than that. I can just speak to 20 years. So this isn't something that just has come up. And I think we owe a big thanks to Dr. Leck and Dr. Peterson for finally being able to come to an agreement and understanding whatever you want to say to make this work. Because, like I said, this isn't something that just came up last week. It's been a long process. So thanks to both of you.
Sally?
The bond sales, if the board approves this tonight, we contact our financial management group. They put the bonds out for bid, and at the August 3rd meeting, if this is approved, then those would be brought back to the board.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, is there approval to participate in the school bond credit enhancement program? Motion by Greg, second by Melissa. Any other discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to number 2, is there a motion for the approval of the public sale of $3.9,220,000 state aid refunding certificates of indebtedness, Series 2020 bond sale resolution? Motion by Melissa, second by Bob. Any discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to number 3, is there a motion for the approval of the notice of the bond sale? Motion by Greg, second by Bob. Any discussion? Greg?
There's one point I want to make. With the new track, don't make it too fast. My two daughters still have the records.
I know they do.
For the 100 and for the triple jump. I don't want that lost. Sorry.
Please don't put that in the vote. We're still working on that record.
We did both.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Get to work.
Thank you.
Moving back into our agenda here, is there, Roman numeral 5, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Bob. Seconded by Greg. Any discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have nothing under recognition or correspondence tonight. We have reports. Superintendent report. Dr. Leck.
So you have my written report. One point I would like to make, Dr. Peterson and the University of Jamestown have scheduled a press conference for tomorrow to discuss our partnership. And they were making this announcement regardless if we were participating or not. Either they were making a press conference announcement that they were working on this facility, or it was going to be a joint partnership. So that will be, I'll be emailing you an invitation to participate in that or to be present at that press conference tomorrow at noon. If you'd be interested in attending, you are certainly invited. That will be about an hour long. They'll serve lunch. I will be there for part of the time, just enough time to make some remarks, and then I'll get back to work with reentry planning because I have a meeting here at 1 o'clock to focus on reentry. But I want to make sure that you check your email when you get back or when you get home tonight or sometime tomorrow, that you'll have that opportunity to attend that press conference as well, and we'll send that out to our activities as well so they can have an opportunity to participate. But wanted to make sure that we make that announcement prior to us adjourning today. We've had, as you're well aware, we have 2 new board members, Gail and Aaron. We have started the orientation process. It certainly hasn't looked as it has traditionally looked for us. We usually spend, as the board is aware, I think almost all of you have gone through orientation with us. We feel like it's an important component of becoming a board member. We know that there's legal responsibilities to attend training, but that occurs in October. That's a couple meetings in already. And we want to make sure that we provide all of the questions or all of the answers to questions and provide appropriate support so our newest board members have an opportunity to feel comfortable at the table as early as possible. And we know that it's a difficult job. And so just outlining a few of the things that we've done, we met for an hour today. And we talked, we really kind of focused on getting to know each other and the mentor-mentee relationship and answering some burning questions. And then we'll have maybe a more formalized process as we go along to address all of the modules that we cover from finance to boardsmanship. But that's something that we're continuing to do. And we're continuing to work with those. As I mentioned in my report, President Schmidt, when I had asked her for mentors, she assigned Diane Hansen with Gail Nelson and Dr. Heim Larson with Mr. Roberts. And so that is those are our mentors and mentees. It continues to be an important aspect, I think, of training and supporting our newest board members. So we're going to continue down that path. And one of the things that we'll do when it's all over is ask you how we did, and hopefully we did a good job, and then hopefully we can improve the process and make it better for our next new board members. Speaking to that effect, the Department of Public Instruction and North Dakota School Boards Association has partnered together to provide board member training. Now, this isn't just for new board members, but it is for any board member. I have not attended these in the past. I think this is year 2 of this partnership. But you are able to attend either virtually or face-to-face in the Pioneer Room at the State Capitol from 9:30 to 3:30. Like I said, it's free, but you can attend if you are so interested in doing that, knowing that we have additional professional development in terms of the North Dakota School Boards Association's annual conference in October. The new board member training that's required is during that same time. I had some areas on here that we've already discussed or will be discussing later. In terms of reentry planning, when I wrote my board report, we were still waiting on some things, but I can tell you, and I'm sure you've heard the same questions that I've heard, and probably the most prevalent question I get is what's school going to look like in the fall? We did receive guidance from the state of North Dakota, from the governor's office and the Department of Public Instruction related to what our reentry guidelines are. How we've opted to look at that is we created a reentry task force. We're meeting over the next couple of days to look at a draft plan that I have created, look at other state guidelines, other school district plans, those inside North Dakota, those outside of North Dakota, and to really make sure that we hone on a plan that makes sense in Jamestown. And so we're looking at all manner of things from when we start, how we operate, how we look at phases, what are our requirements going to be based on the phase that we're in, how are we going to determine that phase, what's school going to look like in August. So it's an important group. I'm very, very thankful that group is in place to give me the guidance and the feedback that I need to hear to make sure that we, again, make the right plan for Jamestown. And I've just given you some examples of some of the ways that we've already looked prior to getting the guidance. We were trying to be as proactive as possible. It was difficult for us to create a lot of plans until we got guidelines from the state. I was part of, I think I've shared this before, but I was part of a reentry task force of state superintendents and other educational leaders to provide some feedback to the governor prior to his announcement about what we felt was necessary in a plan, and we're really pretty thankful that a lot of the guidance that came from the state of North Dakota included those recommendations. Since this time, as I mentioned, we had a focus group. We used our Teacher Leadership Academy to have some focus groups with parents, students, and teachers. They gave us some good feedback. We issued out surveys that I'm sure you heard about or saw. As of this morning, there was about 1,250 responses from our parent survey and about 250 responses from our staff. So we've had pretty good turnout and that'll be very, very helpful information for us as we do, again, look to make that plan that's right for Jamestown. So that group will meet over the next couple of days and as long as necessary. The timeline that I would like to operate with in terms of reentry planning is over the next couple of days, start that process and see how far we get. We'll see if the draft plan that I've provided is on the right track based on all the feedback we get from the different stakeholders, including parents, students, different departments, teachers, administrators. So we've got a pretty wide swath, and one of the first questions I'll ask them is, do we get everybody? Do we have everybody at the table that we need to have? But we'll see how close I am from a draft plan to a final plan. That plan needs to come here. That needs to be board approved. So we create a health and safety plan. That needs to be approved at the board level. I need to revise, or our team needs to revise our distance learning plan in the event we have to go back into distance learning. That needs to be board approved as well. So by governor order, both of those come here for approval, so you'll have a chance to be represented in that as well. Roger Hout was, when I asked President Schmidt for a board representative, she appointed Roger, so he'll serve on that and take probably more hours than he wants to over the next couple of days, and possibly later, depending on how things go, to make sure that we wanted to ensure that board had representation at that aspect of the planning as well. Again, knowing that it's all board approved, so you'll have full ability to have comments on that as we go. But that's the process for reentry. And just with that, I'm going to stand for questions because I think there may be some.
Any questions for Rob or Gail?
I'm just wondering, have they thought of from my past job, how will this impact 504 plans that students are on? Will all of those need to be updated? staff who have medical issues where there need to be special plans put in place for those people? Are those going to be a part of that plan that comes back to us as well?
The simple answer is yes. There's a lot that goes into all of these plans, and, we're trying to make a plan that's broad enough to address everything, but doesn't necessarily get into all of the minutia either. So yes, we're talking about those things. We have to have conversations about every area that you talked about. Some of those will be represented in the plan. Some of those will be represented in other conversations, I think, as a board we may need to have about staffing and how that all works. So all conversations, it may not all have a place in the plan, what you referenced, but.
Greg?
I'll turn on.
Oh, you have a follow-up, Gail, or?
It won't go away again.
Uh,
When I turn to safety.
I don't know if I missed it, but what was the timeline on having our plans together?
I apologize. I started a sentence, didn't finish it. From a timeline standpoint, we're going to need to have a special board meeting because we don't have we only have one meeting in August. We only have our third Monday meeting. We're going to need to have a meeting. I can't tell you when that date's going to be because it depends on the planning. It could be that first Monday, it could be a little bit later, but we're going to need to have a special board meeting because we want to communicate as quickly as we can to staff, to parents, to students about what's being expected and how we're going to operate. So that's the timeline for board approval, but we also have communications planning but that next step after development has to come from the board, or has to come from approval from the board, or direction to be something different.
Gail, do you have a follow-up, or?
I've done quite a bit of reading on that governor's restart plan. One of the things I noticed is that they had training all faculty and staff in appropriate use and wearing of facial coverings. I'm a big believer, as you can see, I'm wearing my facial covering. I think we have to also look forward. North Dakota's numbers have remained consistently high this past week. There are forecasts that say us going even higher. Are there ways that we could model, like by mask wearing, ways of keeping that infection rate lower? I think, as I look out here tonight, I think we could be a very good example to parents, to staff, by our own mask wearing. I will say personally, I would have felt more comfortable if everyone here wore a mask. I'm wearing a mask for all of you because I care about you and I don't want you sick. I have 3 family members who are battling this, 2 former coworkers I worked with in Arizona schools. One's on a ventilator, has been for months. Another one, a math teacher. She was at my daughter's baby. I'll cry if I talk about her a little bit too much because she's very special to me. Her lungs have been described as cement. Anything that we can do to prevent ourselves from getting in that position and keeping our schools open seems vital. I know I can speak as, I can't speak for all staff, but I'm a mother of 2 teachers who are terrified. I've talked to family members, friends who are teachers who are having panic attacks. Is the mental health of your staff and your students and their families going to be a part of this plan too? Going back to school is terrifying on a great year. Every year I'd have nightmares. What will come, what will do. I'd have to, think of those. This I can't imagine if I were back in the classroom. I can't even imagine it. So that's just what I have to say. Anything we can do to keep ourselves safer, or maybe even flatten that curve so that we keep our kids in school. I'm masking everywhere. Hugo's is going to start requiring masks. Walmart's, I think it might be the new norm. I would hope we could be part of that norm. Just a thought. And it's really not that hard. It hasn't bothered me at all. I wear it now. I'm used to it. I started when my husband had a valve replacement. His heart surgeon said, one thing I want you to do. I repaired you. You're good as new. When you're inside, mask. I don't want to see you back here. With COVID, I don't. When you're outside, I really don't care. but when you're inside, you mask. He started back at work today, a masked man. So, I don't know, if all of you know Dr. Roxanne Newman, I take her word pretty high. It's just something for us to think about how we want to be an example.
So just a quick response to that. All of the strategies we'll be talking about are focused around safety and health. Safety and health of all of the people that work and go to school here. And so our committee is going to have a big responsibility to look at where are we at as a phase, how do we determine what phase we're in, and what are our expectations in each of those phases. And there's a lot of strategies that might vary depending on the phase that we're in and at the level that we're at. And there's lots of different ways to provide safety and a healthy environment. And it's a huge task for our committee to look at, but it's something that we will certainly talk
Heidi?
I saw that high school activities has announced fall sports, and so just for those that might not have seen that, but have they released anything because any procedural things for us?
No, they haven't. I don't know what their plan is related to if they're going to provide specific guidelines. I believe they are going to leave it to local school districts to decide do they want to participate or not, and just simply leave it at that.
Aaron?
Thank you.
Just wondering if you've been looking at the registrations for this year and if they're down, and is there a risk for a surge next year as a result of that?
Surge of
Registrations.
like decreased enrollment?
Decreased enrollment this year, increased higher next year.
So it's a good question. There's three different options that you can consider as a district. One is face-to-face instruction, one is virtual, all distance learning, and one is a hybrid. And they could look a lot of different ways. And again, I think you look at the phase that you're in, the level that you're at. We're going to treat, for example, a small elementary school with 100 students has to be treated differently than a high school with 700. And so we have to look at all of those situations different. What makes sense in one may not make sense in the other. And so we have to look at that as we go along and create a plan. So.
Yeah, my question was a little bit different. Looking at specifically kindergarten registrations. Okay. So if you have a 50% decrease this year and you have to deal with 150% next year, for example.
So we did have 1,200 responses to our survey. Right now, 90%, I should say only 10% have expressed a desire to consider only distance learning. Most have been in the camp of desiring face-to-face instruction. We have not seen registrations that different than what we have seen in the past for kindergarten. It's slightly lower, but not significantly lower. One of the reason why I brought up the different options that we have is because some of that is going to depend on the phases that we see and what we're going to target at each building. That's when we're going to start that's when we're going to start seeing what opportunities. Once we share out what our opportunities are at each of the levels, then we're going to see people making decisions in terms of if it's not coming into school. The one thing I didn't reference is virtual academies. Is there going to be an opportunity for those that just don't feel, boy, I have an immunocompromised child, and that's not something that I just can't do? Our options are either to provide something distance for that family, even if we're in face-to-face, or we can lose them to homeschooling, which we all know from a foundation aid standpoint is $10,000 a student, which I think gets to the heart of your question. Are we going to see a big decrease in numbers? Potentially, but we need to make a plan that accommodates everybody. If they are immunocompromised, we have to have a plan that at least provides them an option. We feel the best place for them to be is school. And that school may, to be educated by our school, I should phrase it that way. And if we need to, in the short term, provide that in a different way for some families, those that are immunocompromised, then that's what we need to do, but our plan needs to accomplish that.
Gail?
I have another question. I don't know, maybe it's something you thought of. I know, have you looked at the sub situation for the school year and how many of your subs are willing to come back, knowing many of your subs are retired teachers who may have said health conditions, and if people need to end up quarantining, the time that they quarantine without symptoms is 14 days. Once they've started symptoms, it's 10 days. Are some of those things being considered? Do we have enough staff who can sub to take care of those needs, or is that just an unknown? But, I'll offer this. I'm in an informal group called Wednesday Walking Women. They'd be a good place to start. I think you may have issues with that.
We certainly will have issues with subs, but we did send out a survey. Out of the respondents that we had back, 75% stated that they would be willing to continue substitute teaching. We didn't ask the question about long-term and short-term subs, but 75% of the people that responded, and I don't know what the end size is of that. I'm just not sure. But 75% said they would be willing to continue. But you're absolutely right. The majority of our substitutes are retired teachers who are in a higher risk category, and that is going to be a problem. And I think it's something we just need to continue to monitor and just be cognizant of as we make our plan. But it's another variable to throw in the stew.
Jason?
I know we had earmarked the state, or the funding that we would be getting from COVID as part of the application. Do you see this, the task force, the reentry task force work maybe highlighting some areas of need for the district with some of those dollars? And because I don't know, there's something about we have until a certain amount of time to spend it. But anyway, I was just wondering if you see a connection between the reentry task force and possibly coming up with some thoughts on how to spend those.
Yes and no. The yes is the task force will look at and give recommendations as far as what resources are necessary from all perspectives, from students to parents to teachers to support staff. But they won't be delving into how we're budgeting. But they will help us recognize if there are additional PPE, for example, that might be necessary, or planning around what that classroom might look like, which leads us to, boy, we need more of X, Y, or Z. But no, they wouldn't have. It wouldn't be a group that budgets, but that will be a part of conversation.
Any other
I
questions?
should say whether it's CARES or just other dollars that we need to spend.
Any other questions? Heidi?
I just want to say I appreciate all the people that, including you, Roger, that are willing to serve on this committee. It is a big task, and I know there are lots of opinions and ideas out there, and just trying to come up with a plan that people are comfortable with, and in this short timeline, I just really appreciate all the commitment that everyone has put into it. And I know that we can't have everybody on the committee, but it sounds like you have a good cross-section of people on the committee that would kind of represent all stakeholders. So I really appreciate the work that's gone into it so far.
Thank you. And one comment I wanted to make too about the process that I think is really important to recognize. This is a group that represents a perspective. This isn't the only perspective we're going to get. There's going to be conversations at different levels. What we decide at the elementary level needs to be enacted at, say, Roosevelt Elementary or Louis L'Amour Elementary. Those are guidelines. We need feedback and support from the teachers and from the administrators and support staff in those buildings to say, okay, these are the guidelines. This is how we're going to do it at this building. We want to provide opportunities for feedback for parents and for staff prior to it coming to the board so we can make changes. So yes, it's a group that is drafting and revising the plan, but that doesn't mean that it stops there. We have to get a broader swath. And again, we come down to, this can't be everything to everybody. This is such a polarizing topic that there's going to be many people that look at one aspect of the plan and say, I don't like that. I wish we did this. And you're going to look at somebody else who says the opposite thing. This is not something where we get to make everybody happy. It's just not the reality of it. But we need enough perspective to say, did we make the right decision for Jamestown? And so that's what we're charged with. And so that's what our team will start with. Then we'll share out with parents. We'll share out with staff. We'll revise the plan as we need to. Maybe there's things we didn't think about, and then we'll start in the work of changing from guidelines into building level protocols. Because again, what it looked like at Louis L'Amour with 100 kids is going to be different than what it looks like at the high school. There's 700 kids there, far more staff, bigger building, smaller building. Even if you look at lunch, how lunch is going to look at Louis L'Amour with one gym and 100 kids is different than what it's going to look like at Gustner with 260 kids and virtually the same size gym. Those are all things that are going to be different. We can't include all of that in the plan. We have to provide guidelines and then ask staff and administrators to look at their building and then determine the plan. So I just want to reinforce that we're creating our own district level guidelines, but we include our staff to the degree and our families in the degree that we can to make sure that everybody has a chance to provide input, because this is a big deal. We want to make sure that we do it right. And getting back to some of the questions that were offered before, we want to make sure that, boy, if I'm a family and I just don't feel comfortable with that plan, what's my other option? Because in this period of time, we have to have another option. If we don't have another option, then we're going to lose families. We're going to lose students, which isn't good for our budget, but it's not good for families. We want our kids here in school, or we want them to be educated by our teachers, supported by our support staff here. So we need to be a little flexible in how we provide that. It's a big responsibility for that team, but they'll do a good job.
Any other questions for Rob, or? None? Okay, moving on.
Can I just?
Yep, go ahead.
Just to continue on just to finish my report, I want to recognize Ken Ani and Jason Rohr were both selected as finalists for the position, an open seat on the State Board of Public Education. A totalist of 8 finalists were selected, 1 open spot. Just want to recognize Jason and Mr. Ani for that, and good luck moving forward. The position is appointed by the governor, and so I'm not sure when he's going to make that determination, but just to say good luck. No.
Okay. Did you already hit the professional development board members? You talked about it? You want
I have not.
Okay.
Want to hear me again?
We'll move into board education then right away, quickly.
So if you look at Board Memo 62, as the board's aware, in our strategic plan and as the board is over the last 7 to 8 years has really made a commitment to professional learning. The way you do your job better, just like in your professional jobs, what you do outside of this room, you get better by learning more about the work that you do and developing yourself professionally. Governance is no different. And our board has made a big commitment to how you develop yourself professionally. And I just want to highlight and target a few different areas that the board has committed to improve in governance. One is mentoring for new board members. Every election, when we have new board members, they are assigned a mentor, and we do an orientation program. We think that's important, not only to provide information. The content is only one part. The other aspect is the mentoring that comes along with getting to know somebody else, somebody that's not necessarily the superintendent or the board president or the business manager, that you can reach out to and say, I have a question about this. The more connected our new members feel, the more likely they're going to have their questions answered. And so we want to make sure that everybody is connected outside of just the superintendent or the board president or the business manager. Again, we have orientation, which I've talked about already. I won't go into anymore. The North Dakota Century Code does require that new board members attend a one-day training within 1 year of election. And so that would be in October. I can get you the dates, but it's coming up, I think it's the third Thursday in October this year. It does take place through, fourth week of October, I guess it's right in there. But NDSBA puts that new board member training on. That happens during the annual convention. So new board members will be in that training while other board members are in the annual convention. Next year, you would have that opportunity to be part of that full convention. Well, no, it's opposite school law, isn't it? Kind of brings me to annual board member conference attendance and then other professional development opportunities through NDSBA. Probably the primary state level professional development that exists for teachers or for school board members is the annual conference. I highly encourage your attendance. I think those that have attended in the past have been very happy with the level of training and support that you get. There's keynote speakers, but then there's also individual development opportunities. You can go into breakout sessions that are of interest to you or you feel like you need additional support with. And so there's lots of different opportunities at the annual conference attendance, or at the annual conference to participate in. Outside of the annual conference, there are a rotation of professional learning opportunities through NDSBA. That might be the school law seminar. It might be a negotiation seminar. Then maybe some other ones that come up periodically, but those are the regular ones. And just encourage you to attend those. Whether you are, if you have not attended any of those, I just encourage you to continue to consider it. Local professional development, as the board is aware, we do local PD. So this is professional, this is board education, on board education. But we do board education every meeting, and we'll continue to do that across those different areas that I've listed there: the contextual, the educational, the interpersonal, the political, the analytical, and the strategic, and they are research-based areas. We provide some level of professional learning each month. Beyond that, you also assess yourselves at the end of every meeting. Did you do a good job? Are you adhering to your board norms? Are you adhering to good governance strategies? And this is your opportunity to share with the board if you feel like you are doing a good job. And then beyond that, while it's not a part of professional learning, just a reminder that you do conduct monthly superintendent evaluations around certain competency areas, and we rotate those every month. We do that monthly rather than doing it annually because we believe it's a good opportunity to focus on what's happening in front of you, not just, boy, it's October, how we've been doing throughout the year. Well, what happened in February is meaningful in February, and what happened in February should be just as meaningful than what happened in October. So that's why we structure it that way, and I can be happy to share a little bit more with our new members when we come to that in our orientation. But just a quick outline of PD.
Okay. Any questions or anything on that? No?
Was National Convention canceled this year?
Yes. So one of the things that I didn't reference this, all but new board members are aware of this, but we do have a rotation for national conference. We partner you with your mentors, and we do that on subsequent years. So year one might be Gail and Diane, year two, Heidi and Aaron, or however we manage it, and we might put you all in 1 year. But this year it's canceled, so we wouldn't be taking advantage this year, but I strongly encourage you to attend. That is, again, and other board members can attest that have been able to participate, some of the best professional learning that you'll have as a board member happens at National Conference.
Okay. Moving on to new business, we have nothing under activities. Building and grounds, we have the recommendation for the shared facility, which we covered already. Nothing under curriculum. Bank deposits, and we have a motion to approve the checking and saving accounts and their locations. Motion by Bob. Second by Melissa. Any discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter C, the general fund balance and the summary of debt. What's that? Oh, skipped over there. Sorry about that. Can I have a motion for the district contribution for the health insurance memorandum? It's not a motion, but it's a information there for you for the amount of $38,472.66. Rob, you want to?
Yeah, we should have structured these out differently so you didn't have to listen to me talk for an hour straight. But so for those that are already aware, part of our negotiated agreement is a memorandum of understanding and it connects to our self-funded health insurance plan. And so what the memorandum says is there is and I'll just kind of, I'll give you an overview and then you can ask me questions as you need to, but there's a negotiated pool of dollars. It's $2.5 million annually. That goes into the health insurance fund. We have a 4-month level that has been negotiated. And the health insurance balance at the end of the year, so at the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, it has to be at a certain level. And that's the accrual amount of average employee expenditures per month over a 4-month period. Okay, that's the target. If it is above that 4-month amount, great. The health insurance continues with that interim balance and all is well. When it's below that balance, there's a cost sharing that occurs, and that's at a 60-40 split. The staff pays, or all the users, I should say, are assessed a user fee that equates to 60% of that shortfall. The district is responsible for the other 40% that comes. You don't have to do anything as a board. I'm just sharing this to make you aware. So again, that amount is $2.5 million each year, 1920, 2020, 2021. We are at the end of this fiscal year below, we have a shortfall to that insurance, to that 4-month threshold. So the district is responsible for 40%. So that 40% equates to $38,472.66. That will be infused in your district's budget moving forward because you have that cost by negotiated agreement. The other 60% is assessed, as I said, as a user fee to all users of the plan. And I'm giving you just an average amount. It's about $25 a month per plan, or per plan. So a family plan assessed $25, single with dependent assessed, what is it? It's 25 something, almost 26.
25.65.
What's that?
$25.65.
$25.65. That generates the remaining 60%. That's the memorandum of understanding that you've had in place for a number of years. It hasn't been used since this MOU was put in place. It was put in place because one other time it was assessed, and so this sharing agreement came into place, but it hasn't been used since that time. If there were, that 4-month reserve balance is $1.275 million. If in next year you have another shortfall, you will have to pay that 40% again, and there will be a 60% monthly allotment to staff again. So I've outlined a little bit more information in your report, but I would stand for questions.
Any questions, Rob, on that? Heidi?
So in addition to the $2.5 million, which we've already paid, and this is for the end of the fiscal year at the end of June, and the $38,000 for this past year. Is that correct?
So correct. So you paid the district contributed $2.5 million to the fund. Now to make the fund up to the threshold amount, you need to add another $38,000 plus. That is how the memorandum of understanding works.
Jason?
Will employees have the option to pay the user fee all at once, or does it have to be?
Administratively, no, it'll be paid monthly. The calculation on what they are paying is based on the information, in the April-May payroll, the number of employees participating in the health insurance, taking that 60%, dividing it by that number of users.
Any other questions or comments on that? None? Okay. Moving on to letter C then. It's our general for 2019, there should be 2020, 2021?
No, that's that one's 1920.
Okay. Okay. And that's there for your information, as long as with the summary of debt. If you have any questions on those that Sally could answer, or? None? Okay. Moving on to letter E, is there a motion to approve the monthly financials? Motion by Greg, seconded by Heidi. Any discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter F, is there a motion for the approval of the draft budget and the subsequent one executive summary and the general fund detailed budget? Sally?
And it's the 2020, 2021, actually. Actually, their final budgets. I'll kind of go over the general fund summary and highlight some of the budgets, given, a couple new board members. I say that final budgets, but, as obviously some of those budgets will change, just given the fact that we're doing, bond sales, so we'll be bringing budget revisions to you. We are also just hearing from the Department of Public Instruction. There is, some changes, not a big change, but federal dollars have to match exactly, so I'll be bringing budget revisions there for you. But, there's talking about the revenue, more, we talked about it in June, but just kind of for Aaron's and Gail's perspective to kind of go over the 5 areas that the revenue is categorized in, and it's the largest portion of the local funds is obviously the tax dollars. Another agenda item down or two, by statute, I present a draft mill levy to the county by August 1st. So in the local revenue budget, that's the largest portion. I've estimated a 5% increase. The county has not finalized, they're still doing utilities, so those are not finalized. And by state law, by October 5th, if necessary, we bring a final revenue mill levy to you to submit to the county. So the mill levy that I will down the agenda in a couple line items is a draft mill levy. The county revenue that is being budgeted is for coal conversion, which is the tonnage of coal converted into energy in Stutzman County, and it's dispersed through an enrollment count. Okay. And obviously the state is our foundation that we receive for ADM, and our ADM payment for 2020-2021 is $10,036 per student. Okay. The state also allocates funds for transportation and special education costs and miscellaneous state grants. Of course, it's important to note that due to the closure of school in March 2020, our transportation funds will be reduced by an estimated amount of 25%. Because they go by rides and miles, and obviously with school closing in March, we did not have a full year of rides and mileage. So currently, my guess is that there'll be something in the legislature, but currently right now by law, our transportation payment will be lower next year, given that. So in the budget that I am presenting, those revenue dollars reflect a reduction in transportation payment from the state. The federal dollars, which Dr. Luck continues to write grants. I have to harass him. No, it's all good. Major grants obviously are Title I for students, Title II for professional development, a Title IV for safe and healthy schools and wellness, Idea B for our special education, and Idea B preschool for our preschool education. So those,
I'd like to say the good news is you got the grant, the bad news is you got the grant. Now we have a lot more work.
I was saying, Rob, you know there's a trickle-down effect to this. So in addition to those standard grants that are part of the school district's funding every year, we also have the third year of the Striving Readers Grant, which has been a great, great addition to the district. And this is the third and final grant to the Striving Readers. The board also approved the another comprehensive literacy state development grant, which is continuation on of the Striving Readers. Okay, so that's also in the budget. And the other, which was a board approved, was it changed names. It was CARES. It's called ESSER now, and that was amount of $563,878. Okay. Of this amount, the district's allocation is $527,114, and St. John's portion is $36,764. The federal government used the Title I allocation formula to disperse the funds, but it does not follow those guidelines. ESSA, anything under the ESSA law qualifies for the ESSER grant. So the budget is included in those. But with all the changes and everything going on, you will probably see budget revisions in federal dollars. And, and also maybe in local dollars. For sure, the budget will be revised because of changes in, federal dollar grant money. In the expenditures, the largest expenditure is obviously the salaries and benefits that comprises obviously, we're in the business of educating kids, so our largest portion of our budget is salaries and benefits, okay? The total increase in the 2020-21 school year is, for salaries, is $501,579.40. So that consists of the board negotiations between teachers and administrators, and then the board approved support staff and non-teaching professional salaries. And the benefits obviously are the Social Security, Medicare taxes, retirement, health insurance, life insurance, disability, workers' comp, and employee assistance plan. And then the 300 category of the budget is for professional and technical services. And the largest expenditure in that area is our agreement with James River Special Education that we work cooperatively with. So they hire school psychologists, coordinators. So we work cooperatively with them and pay a portion of their salary and benefits. And currently, 70%, Jamestown gets 70% of the benefit of that. Obviously, we're the largest school district in the special education cooperative. So the expense for 2021 is $1,085,183.03. And the remainder of that category is items for Central Valley Health Nursing. The school resource officer is still in the budget, hoping that maybe some things will change there. And then our audit, our annual audit that we have every year. This year, Shower & Associates will be in our conference room and conducting our audit at the end of our fiscal year. The purchase service, the 400 category, includes water, garbage, repairs, recycling, snow removal, and maintenance agreements and rents. Okay. This year with 3 months, if you notice the electricity, I was kind of surprised. It was a little bit lower, not having people in the building for 3 months, saved a little bit of money there, but it all balanced its way out. The 500 consists of transportation, postage, phones, internet service, advertising, and tuition. Tuition is a very tough item to budget. Kids move, kids change, and Amy's back there smiling because she's the woman that I go to all the time. Amy, where's this kid? What's this kid doing? And so she could probably speak better than how, what a challenge it is, but we do very well working with Amy does all the tracking of regular ed kids and special ed kids, working with Lisa Erickson, and so I depend upon them to get the best information possible, but tomorrow it'll be wrong. 600 are supplies and materials, which consists of, also the electricity and gas, and any school supplies, library books, and our textbooks. And custodial, instruction and custodial supplies are increased in this budget due to cleaning supplies and items that we would need, for the health and safety of the students and the staff due to COVID-19. So some of those expenses are budgeted in the ESSER grant. The 700 is our technology devices, equipment. So we have put some money from the ESSER grant in there, replacing, obviously, with the checkout last March for distance learning. Some came back broken, some, so we have placed money to replace some of the devices and purchase new ones with that ESSER funding. And the 800s, that category is for registration, for conferences, dues and fees for organizations. We background check by law every single employee, and software fees. Those are in that category. The 900 category is just other use of funds. In ESSER, you remember Dr. Luck talking about, we have budgeted, the school food service department did a great job of feeding our kids, but they were also not collecting money from students. And so we have budgeted in ESSER funds to bring food service back whole. We have budgeted $110,000 to bring them back up to where they should be at a minimum. Also, we also transfer for the energy savings grant that Dr. Leck alluded to. And we also, fees that we do for student activities, transfer for student activities at the end of the year, that is in this also. So that's a high-level overview of the general fund. The other budgets, I won't go over them in detail, but you will see in general fund, line by line, you can see each category and how much is budgeted in each line item. I won't sit here and read each one of them. The other budgets, because we are, as a school district, are fund-orientated, the special reserve, which the district does not levy for that anymore, the funds are sitting there. It would take a resolution by the district if the school board would choose to, let's say, the board decides that they want to spend some of that money. It would take a board resolution, and you can do 50% of what's in that fund to transfer over to general fund. And so that budget in there, that's what that reflects for special reserve. The building fund. Special reserve. The building fund is for the projects that Rob was talking about and that we don't have enough money for. So that is the summer projects budget that is in this building fund budget that Dr. Leck brought to you in March. Those are the projects. The Lincoln boiler is being replaced as we speak, and asbestos abatement. So those are the two big ticket items that were funded with this year's mill levy for the building fund. The debt service is if we, where we pay any debt out of. We have two debts that we transfer, one from building fund and one from general fund, and that is our ESG payment. And obviously now with what just happened tonight, this will change. But that's what the debt service is, to pay debt out of the school district. We have the taxpayers have said, like Rob alluded to earlier, we don't want a bond referendum. If we had a bond referendum, it would come out of here. Even if we don't have any debt that the school district has, comes out of this fund. One is budgeted in general fund and one is budgeted in building fund, but the funds are transferred here to make those payments. The next is the food service, which Shelley Mack did before she left. I revised it a little bit to include that $110,000 in revenue. And the rest is, her revenue comes from, some from, you can see the local dollars from parents, the rest is state reimbursement, and then the federal programs that she gets dollars from. At some future meeting, you'll meet our new food service director. He's hitting the ground running, Joe Oster, and he is, anxious for the committee to decide because it will affect food service, so he'll be in those meetings trying to make decisions best for the safety of the students. The next budget is the activities budget. I work with Mr. Roldson and Mr. Stillwell and comprise that budget. And then the next one is the health insurance. You can study that out as an estimation of claims that we will be paying and the amount of revenue, which reflects the 2.5 plus the $38,000 that was added to the general fund budget due to the negative year-end balance of the health insurance fund. And our final budget is our James Valley Career and Technology, since you guys are the operating board for that entity. And Mr. Gaylor and I work together on this budget. And so he's done a great job and will continue to work on this. And his budget is estimated at $1,204,955. So he is getting programs for that CTC and doing a great job with the budget also. That's all I have.
Is there a motion to approve the draft budget and executive summary and the general fund detailed budget? Motion by Jason, second by Melissa. Any
And it's the
discussion?
final budget.
Final budget?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Jason?
Oh, me.
Do we have any idea yet what that transportation shortfall will be from the state from last March?
Like I said, my budget is reduced by approximately 25%. We should know more.
Then just a reminder, what did we save through Dietrich's reduced contract? Do you remember?
We spent 82% of our budget, so, yep.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter G is removal for the approval of the 2021 certificate of levy. Motion by Greg. Second by Melissa. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to personnel, we have letter A. Can I have a motion for the approval to hire Andrew Rhoda as precision machining instructor, 0.25 FTE, salary of $11,079.25 at the Career and Technology Center for the 2021 school year. Motion by Gail, second by Aaron. Any discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to policy and procedures, letter A is our motion for the approval of the second reading of the prohibition of aiding sexual abuse, ABCE policy. Motion by Greg. Second by Gail. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter B is our motion for the approval to amend the elementary school attendance area policy FAB and the subsequent 1 elementary attendance area waiver form. Motion by Melissa, seconded by Gail. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to number 8, tuition. Is there a motion for the approval of the tuition agreement for 11th grade Gackle Streeter student to attend Jamestown Public School for the 2021 school year? Motion by Gail, seconded by Greg. Any discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter 9, if it's all right with the board, we'll approve all of the handbooks at one time. Is that all right with everybody, instead of going through each one? Can I have a motion to approve? Oh, Gail? Can you turn your mic on? Oh,
Sorry. I usually talk loud
Yep,
enough, it doesn't matter, but I read through all of those this weekend, and I noticed that number 8 might need a language update. They refer to school counselors as guidance counselors, which is an archaic term not used anymore, so just if that, I think it was updated at one time, and maybe when something happened, it got reverted back, because I know it had been updated before. That would be on number 8. Just looking through the name, they had it updated for elementary, but the middle school and high school, they referred to them as guidance counselors. It's just not what they're referred to anymore, so it'd just be an update in language.
Rob?
Just a note, I think we can still approve it with it and just update the language.
Rob?
Just recommend, we'll make that change. If you approve, it'll be assuming that recommended change.
Yep. So I'll just read through them all, and then if I can get a motion to approve the elementary secretary handbook, the transportation handbook, home education handbook, teacher's handbook, support staff handbook, high school handbook, JHS handbook changes, and the Jamestown Hub Alternative High School Program handbook, and the summary of the Jamestown Hub handbook changes, and the approval of the staff responsibility handbook with those changes Gail made. Motion by Melissa. Second by Gail. Any other discussion? Greg?
Just a clerical, we miss those every once in a while. A lot of things to change, so we'll update it to 2020.
They just did that so you could catch that, Greg. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries. Items for future agenda. Melissa?
I would like to just see if we could get a follow-up report from Mr. Geller regarding the transition house relocation, where we're at with that, especially considering COVID, and they were supposed to be doing students and that helping with that.
Yep.
Board education, okay?
Any other items? Heidi?
And I'd like to, good idea, and I'd like to add to that, as long as he's here, could he talk about the hub and how that's all going, and the
Working with
name
it, yeah,
change, and the name
absolutely.
change, just to make sure people understand what's happening with the name change and so forth.
Jason?
Maybe not an item for agenda, but going into this fall, would it be appropriate, possible to continue to offer these meetings to the public via Zoom, or is that not an option?
Well, we'll do whatever the board wants to do. But the one challenge I would say is that it has been difficult to have a hybrid of face-to-face and online. Virtual has been difficult when there are people here and then people on listening. That's been hard. We've heard lots of reports of feedback issues, how to hear who's speaking. Like I said, the board will do whatever the board wants to do, but that's been a little bit of a challenge. Certainly a possibility. I do know, I'm sure Jason has an opinion that they could probably watch the YouTube channel too, that he does such a great job of managing as well. So there are other opportunities to view as well, but I'll do whatever is directed.
Gail, you had a question, or?
Yeah, I was just going to say too, I know that if that's not a feasible means, maybe there are other means that the public could watch it, like Facebook Live, or like you said, the YouTube channel, or just to get that word out. But still plan for maybe a contingency if we have a change in COVID to go back to Zoom meetings, or should something like that happen.
Okay, Rob?
Just my perspective on that, I think what works best is all or nothing. Either you're all virtual or you're all here, and then the opportunity to participate is, as we've traditionally done, via phone or watching is happening on the YouTube channel when that's presented. That seems to be the best way to make that work. I think we saw last meeting that it was very, very challenging. We were muting and, we're kicking feedback, and it was very challenging, I think, for those that weren't here to do that. But like I said, we will do, if that's what the board wants, we will certainly go that route.
Heidi? No?
Oh, yeah, well, I just know it was difficult trying to manage both and trying to see who has a hand raised here versus a hand raised on the Zoom, and it almost creates confusion for even the YouTube video, because you don't know who's asking something on Zoom, because it's not broadcasted, it's just on your laptop in front of you. I think if we get questions, from the public, make sure we know that the YouTube channel is available and the link is available and the minutes are available on the website, and we can kind of go from there, and if people have a lot more concerns, we can probably address them at that time. Is my
That,
thoughts.
or also, if people have concerns, can talk to board members too, and the board members can bring those concerns to the board too, so, or to the superintendent too, so. Okay, if there's anything else that comes up under future agendas that you want on the agendas, just let Rob or myself know, and we'll get those on there. Meetings to be scheduled, our next school board meeting is Monday, August 17th, 5:15 here in the Thompson Room in the middle school.
One point on that, I would just remind that we're likely to have a special board meeting to approve the reentry plan. And
Yeah, we're probably going to likely to have a special meeting prior to that meeting to approve our reentry plan and so on, so. And we'll let everybody know on that one, so. Moving on to the agenda, the next agenda item is executive session, and this matter involves the Jamestown Education Association and a prior application for employment, Nate Solis. If anyone has a conflict of interest, I suggest that you declare prior to the entering executive session, if it hasn't already been declared already. If someone has a conflict of interest, but the board member believes that they can remain impartial and unbiased, the rest of the board would need to make a motion to allow that board member to declare the conflict to participate in the executive session, and the motion would need to pass unanimously. Bob?
I move that the board enter into executive session for the purpose of attorney consultation regarding and in anticipation of reasonably predictable civil litigation, and to receive its attorney's advice and guidance on the legal risks, strengths, and weaknesses of an action which, if held in public, would have an adverse fiscal effect on the school district pursuant to North Dakota Century Code, Section 44-04-19.2, subsections 2, subsection 5. The following members and administrators are identified as being present: school board members Greg Allen, Roger Hout, Heidi Larson, Gail Nelson, Aaron Roberts, Jason Rohr, and Robert Toso. Superintendent Robert Leck, business manager Sally Ost, and attorney Rachel Bruner via telephone. That the date and time are July 20th at 7:30 p.m. and that only the following topic will be considered in executive session: pending adversarial administrative proceedings and negotiating strategy, or providing negotiating instructions to the district's attorney, and that the executive session be recorded.
There a second? Second by Jason. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And then we'll go, do we want to go into executive session here versus going?
I think the board needs to make a decision. Traditionally, we would have it in the central office conference room.